All right, guys, welcome to yet another episode of Devil's Advocate or Court of Public Opinion. I don't really even know what the name of the show is anymore. I like both titles.
It may be one of those rare double titles.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is, hyphen, slash. But this time the topic is, this is a good one. Once again, Heidi does not know what these topics are. I know the topic, so his reactions are organic. And that's why I play the devil's advocate and defend this point no matter what side he takes. So I'll give you the prompt and you'll tell me what you think about it, and then I will debate the opposite side. So, the title, the prompt is, women are a lot more emotional than men. Women are a lot more emotional, almost like to an exaggerated degree. Do you agree with that, or what's your stance on that?
I think we're getting into what what you're driving to when you say emotional. I think is like an emotional volatility, like a
yes, like almost hysterical.
Yes,
but that's the thing,
that's
like, right?
Okay.
That's the argument that people make. It's like, oh man, women are so emotional. Women are so emotional. We hear that all the time.
Yes, we do.
So that's the problem.
I would tend to disagree with that.
Disagree. Okay, yeah, cool. That's good. Because that makes me argue the point. Which, by the way, I don't think women are. On the, if we have to say emotional as a plane, I don't think women are like here and men are like. I think there's a part of emotion that people don't take into context. But since I will be arguing for that, hopefully that's an argument you make. But yes, I will say that women are more emotional than men. You know, and that's why I think men make better leaders, is because we are able to separate ourselves from a situation and be more objective. I think the strength of a man is men are objective and women are subjective, right? They focus in on a single issue and they give it all their attention. That's why they make great mothers, because they pay a lot of attention to one thing. They got a child, they focus on that child. Men, on the other hand, will look at the big picture. We're the providers. We got to see everything, so we can't afford to be emotional, because emotions cloud your judgment.
Interesting. You know, I think there are a couple things that you said that I'll speak to. I think as human beings, we experience, and I don't know what would that be, a biologist in that way, but we essentially experience the same emotions.
Okay.
I think that whether it's fear, anger, love, jealousy, all that, we experience the same emotions. I think where we can diverge when it comes to behavior is often how we're socialized to deal with those emotions and what behaviors are acceptable outlets for those emotions that move through us. And certainly we consider men and women are socialized very differently with how those emotions are okay and suitable and acceptable to be handled. Whereas, you know, we find, of course, with younger girls that they're allowed to cry if they're hurt, or if someone says something about them that they don't like, or, you know, if there is a feeling of pain, they're allowed to do that. Whereas boys and men, or boys who grow into men, are told to suck it in, or pull it together, or hold that in, or to stiff upper lip, however you want to take it on the chin, whatever one of those kind of antiquated phrases you want to use. Not to mention, I think the point that you spoke to about being great leaders, I think is a really important one to note, and what we mean by great, and how do we characterize great, because we can say that, you know, certainly men have been in certainly Western societies much more have asserted themselves to be in the leadership and dominant role, but I think if we are to take a real assessment of what has resulted from that, has it been great? Has it been? Have societies been more fair? Have they been, you know, more acceptable of those who are not like them? Have they been, you know, really designed for the betterment of the members of that society? And I think if you look at the ways in which groups of women operate and groups of men operate, again, no biologist here or studier of these things, but it is that women tend to cooperate in groups easier and more effectively and more supportively than men do. Not that men are not able to, but I think that our certainly our egos and interact with one another differently, in a way.
Sure, but I mean, like, a bunch of women on girls' night. Yeah, that's a collection of women, but this is the problem with women is that their biology plays into that. I know you're talking about, like you were talking about earlier about nature and nurture, like, oh, sure, society nurtures certain behaviors and that's why they're more prominent, but there's also the nature side of them, like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, it's in their nature, like women, it's known that they have their periods, all right? I'm told this is a thing that happens. All right, scientific speaking.
Heard whispers of such
yeah, you know, I've seen the commercials and I've seen the products at the grocery stores, obviously.
There's got to be something going on down there.
Yeah, I'm like, what is all this Tampax pearl thing about? That's not how pearl necklaces look like. But I think that there is that component of, like, they become erratic. This is like they're getting all these hormones pumped into them by their body's thinking they're pregnant and all this kind of weird stuff is going on. So their emotions play part in that, you know, like, what if we give a woman the nuclear code, she's the president, and one day she's on her period and she blows up Russia? Like, bro, this is not, we can't just have women willy-nilly, you know, pressing buttons.
You know, it's interesting. I think that's a hypothetical that I've heard before, but I think what we don't...
It's a scary one.
It is a scary one. I think that we don't have to, but I think it's also interesting to take the other side of that and look at history and how men who have been in power and have been motivated by, I think, petty jealousies and emotions, such as, say, Kaiser Wilhelm and his lead up to his aggression in World War I with Germany. It was very much rooted in a conflict with his royal siblings, in the other European countries, and feelings of being undervalued as a child. He had was like a limp or where he was like, he had a deformity. And so I think when we speak about emotions and what that drives us to do, I think man, that's a horrible hypothetical to have an emotional woman on the nuclear button. But I think when we look at the imbalance or the ways in which men mismanage their emotions combined with, I think, power taken to the highest and most deadly levels, it's accounted for millions upon millions of deaths.
Wait, hold on now. First of all, I didn't know you were going to be pulling out historical figures.
Look, if you're going to run out, you're going to be throwing futuristic, hypothetical, hyper-emotional women.
Like historical people. And second of all, men don't get angry. That was called passion. Men are passionate. Women get angry because that's based on their hormonal bodies. Right. But men are passionate. That's not out of anger. That war wasn't out of anger. That war was out of passion. All right. And by the way, we should not be making fun of the handicapable people. All right. That is something that we don't do in a modern society. So they have all right to fight a war over that. I think that was reason enough to have a war so that he and other people like him are not made fun of.
Indeed.
But if we want to talk about petty wars and battles that were started, what about Cleopatra? What about Cleopatra and Antony having their sordid love affair and then getting Julius Caesar stabbed by all his homies for that? Ha! You see, that is women using their emotions to confuse a man into then stabbing his homie. You know how many times you got stabbed?
Lots of times. Like, there were many stabs. There were many stabs.
They also turned stabbing that dude. They're like, man.
It was like, hey, I've had enough of this. Come on, get in. I think that, we really have to, take a moment to think about, the kinds of emotions that the way that we think of and characterize emotion, what strength looks like.
Okay.
I think that, for so often and for so long, and so many of us, and certainly men, the idea of being strong is your physical embodiment and what you're able to exert your physical force upon. Right. And I think that more and more now, I think we find that there has been a vast overinvestment in that versus taking time to consider how it is we deal with the everyday shifting realities that we have to contend with on the inside of us. That, it's one of those things where it's rare that you find men who are able to sit down and speak with one another. And if they do, it's like we got to have a couple drinks in it. We got to make sure that we can relax into a space where we can actually speak honestly, perhaps. And it can only come, at the end of like a Chappelle show, dude's night out.
Dude's night out!
What? You think this is a game? Yes! This is dude's night out! Dude's night out!
Only reason I'm crying is because of the adrenaline.
And it's only in these kinds of states where there's allowed to be a real expression of emotions. And I would argue that it's the stifling of and constricting of emotion that is far more dangerous than the expression of it.
Right, but don't you think, I know women are always trying to get men to open up and talk about their feelings and share their emotions.
Is that what they're telling you?
Not me specifically.
Oh, okay.
I am an open book, ladies. I am very much in touch with who I am emotionally, and I'm in control of those emotions. That's what makes me an even better leader.
Oh,
because I have all those feels, but I know how to put those feels in their place. But what I was gonna say is that women say that, but then how many women are like, but I don't if you get too emotional, that's seen as weakness. You know what I mean? If we're together and we're sleeping in the room and we hear a noise downstairs, you don't want me to get all emotional. That's not what the woman says. No woman has ever been like, hey, I hear a noise, get emotional. It's usually I hear a noise.
Tell me how you feel about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's go do something about that. And as a man, you gotta bury that fear deep, right past your childhood insecurities. Right past your feelings of insecurity and get to the core and be like, listen, I gotta man up and go do that because emotions aren't very helpful right now. She's allowed to be emotional, but I need to be absent of emotional. And you can't ask men to have that ability to then dead their emotions and then expect us to then have some kind of access to those same emotions. It's like men have been taught for so long to repress those emotions because they don't serve us. So by women being allowed to be emotional, that's what I'm saying. I think they've taken it too far. They're too emotional, and that's not helpful, and that's not serving us. What good is it talking about how you feel if you don't do anything about those feelings? Huh? Talk is cheap, right? Isn't that what we say? Talk is cheap. Action is where it's at.
Indeed. I think that there doesn't have to be, we don't have to live in the extremes of either, because thought without action is just listless pondering, and action without thought is just mindless, usually mindless harmful behavior. And so I think finding the space in which there can exist a balance between the two, and realizing that a healthy and thorough examination of one's emotions is something that we should desire for everyone to practice, man or woman. And I think it's in that healthy examination that we're able to sift through what some of our instant reactions might be to whatever a circumstance or situation might be, and actually find a better response and a better action that can result from it without being impulsively ruled or controlled by, again, the emotions that we all do experience.
So you're seeing value in that. You're seeing value.
Oh, I'm seeing value.
Access to that.
Absolutely. I think one of the great things that men can do is free themselves to experience and be open to what their emotional body can tell them. And it's not going to be everything. It's not going to be, that doesn't mean surrender entirely and be ruled by, what that is, but a healthy and real awareness of what that is. Because again, then it's like, you move into the space where you're this, hyper chiseled, hyper formed,
top G,
mask of an individual.
Right. But wait, okay, so you're having a two-pronged argument, because you're not only saying that women aren't too emotional, you're now saying men aren't emotional enough, right? Or at least they're not having access to that emotion. But what I would argue, Your Honor, is that if there was value in having those emotions, then why is it that women can't stand to be around each other for too long? You're always trying to see women try to infiltrate a group of guys because they don't want that drama. They're tired of the drama, because emotions create a lot of drama. Because a lot of these people, they're not acting from a place of logic and reason. They're acting from a place of how they feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I say in the same breath that I say that yes, men should free themselves, I think, to experience that emotion, I think that certainly women would benefit from a healthy dose of rationale to not mitigate, but shape and mold some of what these emotional responses might be.
Okay.
And
you gotta say things my way. Yes. Come on over here on the side of misogyny, brother.
It's nice. Nice and warm over there.
Nice and warm. All those repressed feelings help me like snuggling to bed at night.
Keep my core warm. Yeah. And so it is. It's not a it's not a one size kind of fits all. I think that what we've done a lot in our society, and this kind of wavers off into the idea of gender as a whole, is this idea that there's this or that when it comes to human beings. Yeah, the binary idea of human beings being this or that, one way or the other, emotional or not, soft or hard, and it's like we're multifaceted entities, and I think when we can hold on, wait. Excuse me.
The truth will set you free, my brother.
The truth will come flying out of it. But
allergic to it.
Too much realness. Excuse me. Can't take it. Because it hot in here. But I think moving away from that idea, and certainly that translates to our emotional life, in that it's not that one group of human beings all have this trait and are all this way, and another is entirely not that.
So you're looking for sure. But we're speaking on the big. I'm looking at the macro. Not the micro.
That is the macro.
Well, look, I'll say this then. This is a debate that's tough to have, because look, you can believe that they're not. I can believe that they are, but you gotta leave it up to the people.
True indeed.
You gotta leave it up to the jury. The jury's gotta decide if they think women are too emotional. I say yay, and I was debating for yay. Not really. But the sides of the yay have pled their case and rest our case that the closing statement for saying women are too emotional is the fact that we all know that hysterical friend, that hysterical girlfriend who's always arguing and screaming and crying, and it's like, I've never walked out of a club at 2 a.m. going home and seeing a bunch of dudes crying, sitting off. It's always some drunk girl who is crying and lost one of her shoes and has her eyeshadow run down her face. It's always that. It's like, that's not a good look, girl. Come on. Find your other shoe, all right? Get yourself home. What do you think you're, a Cinderella? Just leaving shoes willy-nilly outside the club? No. All right, so women, get your emotions in order.
Indeed.
Closing
arguments, I would say that women are not too emotional. I think it's a combination of, we all have, I think at times, misplaced understandings of how to process our emotions, and certainly men have been socialized to be less receptive to expressing that emotion, and take your night at the club and say, true, you may not find a bunch of guys crying outside, but how many might you find inside whose egos maybe crying on the inside, whose egos are so fragile that the slightest rejection or the slightest perceived infraction from another guy sparks a fight or some kind of disrespectful action, and it's all connected to feeling like to that emotional life and that emotional body. And if it is so fragile that the slightest touch sets it off, I think that's a sure sign of one's, say, mismanagement of emotion.
But I would tell you the most shameful hour in a man's life is between the hours of 1:30 and 2:30 a.m. when the club gets out and you see a bunch of dudes. The shit guys say at the end of the night, the stuff that I've heard come out of guys' mouths.
Hey, girl.
It doesn't even. I'm like, you can't possibly think that's gonna work. You cannot. So.
I take you to Fat Burger. Let me lick between your teeth.
Oh boy, yeah. Even though they were just that articulate, they just scream body parts out.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, what is wrong with this as a species?
Careful legs. Yeah. Hold on, girl.
Yeah.
You walk with you. Yeah.
That would do it for us. This is the Court of Public Opinion. You guys let us know what your thoughts are on that. Are women too emotional, or are they just emotional enough, or are emotions just a figment of our imagination and a construct of society? We don't know. Y'all let us know what you think. I had another point to make, but I think I couldn't remember what it was. It was something to do about clubs and emotions
in the club.
Maybe it wasn't that great of a point because I can't remember it. So yeah, thank you guys for checking in, tuning in, and then until the next one. I saw you were trying to get to that binary conversation. That's one of those It's one of those upcoming topics. That one takes we needed more time. That's a longer format, such a complex. Because you got to do so many dances to make sure you don't get canceled for what you're saying right now. So
cancel dance.
But that one's coming up for sure.